Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Mary Malone from the Greater Hazleton Chamber of Commerce. And for all of ours that are on virtual, we just had a fantastic lunch, didn't we? But let's give our virtual friends a round of applause so that they know we're looking out for them and that we're all here together. My job is just the housekeeping rules for this afternoon. Make sure your cell phone is turned to silent again. The office can wait. Also, don't forget about your app and the agenda and sneak peek. There's potentially some polls and the ability to write some questions, so you definitely want to have your app ready for our session today. Don't forget about the hashtag, which is? Thank you. All right, that's good. There's water in the back of the room, and again, the Disney exit. Please remember at the end of the speech today to look right and left under your chair. Take all your belongings with you, and there is a garbage can on your way out as well. So sit back and enjoy. Almost forgot my most important job. Very proud to introduce to you Laura Allen from the PNC team. And how about that innovative initiative, that Project 257? How about a great round of applause?
Good afternoon, everyone. As Mary said, I'm Lauren Allen. I'm a Vice President and the Client and Community Relations Director for PNC Bank in Northeast PA. At PNC, we define ourselves as a Main Street bank. That means that we organize around our customers and our communities, and we are proud of the strength of the relationships we work to build and deepen with those constituents over time. Those relationships are at the heart of our business model. We recognize that we are only as strong as our communities, and when they prosper, so does our bank. That's why we're fortunate to partner with the Chamber and with other sponsors to support events like this conference and many initiatives that help make Northeast PA a great place to live and work. It's my pleasure to be here today to celebrate and be inspired and motivated by so many wonderful people in attendance and sharing their insights as session speakers. I'm especially pleased to be able to introduce our speaker this afternoon, Strother Gaines. Strother is a business and personal coach for creative entrepreneurs and for those who just want to be. He works with lawyers who just want to dance, programmers who wish they were potters, and executives who want to integrate their professional lives with their authentic creative selves. He is a multi-passionate entrepreneur with a background in theater, public speaking, education, sales, management, leadership, and Segway tour guiding. His private practice is called But I'm a Unicorn, Damn It, and he is passionately working to help as many people as possible embrace their uniqueness. He is the producing artistic director for Washington, D.C.'s only immersive theater company, TBD Immersive. His TEDx talk has been viewed more than 27,000 times, and his work has been seen in person by more than 30,000 audience members. You can read more about Strother in the Empower app. Just a reminder that all attendees, both in the room and virtually, may submit questions via the app. If you are using the web-based platform, go to your agenda, then into this session, and on the right-hand side, you'll see a blue button, Ask a Question, and Submit. In the mobile platform from the home page, there is a session Q&A box mid-screen you can go into and select this session and submit your question there. In-person guests will also have the opportunity to ask direct questions as well. Now please join me in welcoming the first man to be a session speaker at the Empower Conference, Strother Gaines.
Thank you all for joining me. We're double miking here. I'm going to join here at the podium briefly because I'm going to talk to our virtual attendees. I apologize. I'm going to use this lav mic most of the time. So for a lot of this, you're just going to hear me over you, but I'm going to be looking at all of these people. So I'm going to stay here for a little bit so you can see my face, you can get to know me a little bit, and then I'm going to meander around so I can talk more directly to all of you. So thank you all for joining me today. This presentation, Mari actually made me change the title because the title is usually How to Network Without Being an Asshole, and Mari was like, maybe, maybe not that one. And I was like, okay, great, what would you like? And she said, how about being a Karen? And I was like, well, I'm the only guy at this, Mari. I'm a little nervous. And she was like, don't, tell him that I did it. Tell him it was me. So you can thank Mari. And I know there is an actual Karen. There is a real, your name is Karen. Raise your hand for me, Karen. Hi, Karen. I'm not talking about you. I'm so sorry for that. Blame Mari. Right, like, oh, so it was a draw for you. You're like, well, I can't do what you're saying. So we're going to talk about networking today, and I'm going to try and get my little, oh, no. Can we get the presentation up on there for me? Perfect. Well, we're going to talk about networking, and one of the things that I've been running networking events for many years. I have been networking professionally for quite some time, and everyone hates it. There are a couple of us who like it, but most of us dislike it. Raise your hand if you hate networking. Absolutely hate it, hate it. Sorry to be like, if you're introverted and you hate networking, raise your hand really high right now. But let me see, put it up for me real quick, let's see. If you like it, it's fine, you tolerate it, raise your hand. And if you love it, it's your favorite thing, raise your hand. So a handful of you. For all of you who hate it, I hope that you walk out of this with a little bit of a little more confidence and a little less terror around it, because it's really not that scary. So we're talking about authentic networking. Boop. And so my name is Strother, which rhymes with father. It's Hungarian. It means ostrich, which my parents didn't know when they named me. So whoopsie doodles on that one. I'm a business coach and trainer. My private practice is But I'm a Unicorn, Damn It, which is the legal name. The IRS actually called me once I registered it, and they were like, Mr. Gaines, we are sure that we have misunderstood and that this is a goes by or something. I was like, nope, that's the legal entity. Here's the EIN. And they were like, well, okay, have a great day. I'm the artistic director of TBD Immersive. My drag name is Joanne Fabrics. That's me in full face. So I usually I don't lose the beard, but I keep it with a little bit of glitter. So while I am the only male presenting person here today, I've been in heels with you before too. Mari and I were talking about how awful. Thank you. Okay, I'll take some heels claps for that. It's the worst. Good for y'all, but my calves look great in them. And I promise today will be fun. It's not going to be a slog. And I want this to be interactive. So if you have questions, anytime I do a workshop that's not straight up keynote, I want it to be impactful for the people in the audience. So if you've got a question, if there's something that's coming up for you, let's do that, because I'd rather spend time with you than be like, and now the slides that I have prepared. So even if we don't get through all of this is usually a 90-minute presentation. We're doing it in 45. That's fine, because I want to help you out more. So today, talking about networking, but what type of networking? We're going to be talking about authentic networking. Now, authentic networking, what's the difference? I was talking, is Dawn in here? I told her to go to a different session, but if Dawn isn't here, I met someone outside, networking. There's Dawn. Hi, Dawn. I met someone outside because there was a small child having a breakdown in the hallway out there, and as we walked by, we shared that knowing glance of like, woof. It's a rough day for that family. And then we started talking. And we were talking about how showing up as exactly who you are is how you connect. But one of the things that we do a lot of times in a networking scenario is we try and pretend to be more impressive. We try to be something that we aren't, or we lead with our accomplishments or our resume, or we're worried that we're going to get judged up and down. Because what is networking if not someone coming up and being like, are you worth my time? Should I hang out with you? And that's why most people hate it, is because you are basically being like, judge me. And when someone says, I don't like it, you're like, ooh, that is rough. And so a lot of times we will guard against the authenticity. We'll show up and we'll be like, oh, and now I'm doing my business voice. I used to work in a spa. I was a massage therapist, and I answered the phone. Thank you for calling Aura Spa. This is Strother. How can I help you? And I'm sure many of you have a work voice as well. I used to call an ex of mine, and when he would answer the phone, I would be like, that's not how you sound. What are you doing? And it's because we're pretending, or we're putting on this front because we think that's what's expected of us. And a networking event in particular, conferences I actually find way easier than networking events. So we're going to jump into some of the meta of this. Conferences are nice because you can be like, did you like the speaker? Have you ever been to this venue? It's way easier than everybody like awkwardly standing around with the drink. You have content, you have things to do. So you all are in an excellent position. So what I'm going to encourage you to do over the course of the next 30 or so minutes is to find out how you can be your most authentic self when you are in a networking scenario. That's going to come with some tips and tricks, which is what everybody usually wants when I talk about networking, but it's also going to come with some of us putting our own house in order. So what is authenticity? Oh man, this thing is so sensitive. Let's see. There we go. If you go to dictionary.com, it says it is the quality of being authentic, which is not really helpful as a definition. And so authenticity has become a bit of a buzzword for people right now. Who's familiar with Brené Brown's work? I saw her book out on the table. I have two professional crushes. Brené Brown is one. I almost went to UT Austin specifically because I was like, maybe she would be my professor. She would not have been. And Seth Godin, who's a marketing whiz. So the two of them are kind of the two that I really follow and have influenced what I do. Brené talks about the power of vulnerability, and vulnerability is part of showing up authentically. If you're going to show up authentically, you are inevitably showing up vulnerably because you've put yourself out there and people are going to judge it. And so for me, when we talk about authenticity, it's about showing up with the full you. Whatever your definition of authenticity is, great, but it's definitely not just the quality of being authentic. We want to be able to show up as ourselves. So why does authentic networking matter? Because it creates real connection. Not to make everything about Dawn today, but Dawn and I, in the span of about 8 minutes, we're like, let's talk about childhood traumas, shall we? And that was really, like, we were like, and so that is something that, the reason that it happened is because both of us were just like, this is who I am, this is what I'm doing, and we've really connected, and it wasn't, here's my business card. Mari and I met at a conference called Inbound, and at Inbound, I was at the speaker workshop, or the speaker networking thing beforehand, and we were all standing in a circle, and this guy literally takes his business card, comes under the circle, raises his business cards in the middle, fans them, and is like, here you go, I'm an accountant, anyone want to work with me? And like, thought that would work. And to me, that is throw this away from me, throw this away from me, throw this away from me. I don't know that guy. I'm not going to actually do business with him. When I first became a coach, everyone says, well, the thing you have to do is go network. Network, 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 build relationships. Co-signed, totally true. And we do it really poorly in those false circumstances of a networking event. By creating a real connection with someone, by showing up authentically and vulnerably, that person will be able to actually know who you are and put you in the right place. Every good and wonderful thing that has come from my professional life has come from a relationship with people, and not from a relationship with someone I thought, how can I use this person? And that's what happens in a networking event, is we're always thinking like, oh, okay, maybe that person's, has anyone ever been to Network After Work? Networking After Work is a large national organization that actually does really good work, but one thing that they do that I disagree with is they color code your name tag based on the industry you're in. And so what inevitably happens is people will be like, and you just feel like crap the whole night because you're just like, no one wants to talk to me? And I think that that is doing yourself a disservice, because only connecting with people that you think you could use professionally is not actually going to take you forward at all. Because again, my TED Talk is the perfect example. Everyone's like, how do you get a TED Talk? Don't follow my path, it's not the way there. I had been directing a show for the DC Fringe Festival, and a woman that I had met at a networking event who did not know me as a director, who only knew me as a coach, came to see my show, saw my name in the program, did not know it was my show, came up to me afterwards and said, hey, my partner runs TEDx Mid-Atlantic. We've been looking to do this immersive theater thing. Would you be interested? And I was like, well, yeah, but I've never done immersive theater before. I love it, but I've never done it. She goes, oh, that's fine, no problem. And we also probably need someone to go up and tell them what to expect. So if you could step on stage for like a couple minutes and just be like, here's what to expect. And I said, well, I'm actually a speaker too, so it'd be really valuable for me to have a TED Talk. Do you think I could do it? And she was like, yeah, you've got 8 minutes. And she worked in food and beverage. We had talked about how can we work together? How can we collaborate? We had no idea, and we always came up blank. You could not, there was nothing that we could do where it was like, well, maybe if you like cater an event for me, or maybe, and it just wasn't working. But if I had said, she's in food and beverage, there's nothing she can do for me, then I would have missed out on the best thing that has come to me professionally. Every step along the way comes from a real, authentic connection. So don't cut yourself off based on the industry or what you think they can do. It has a longer shelf life. Being authentic and truly connecting with people will last a long time. Mari, we met 2.5, 3 years ago, and this is the first time we've actually been able to make this work. Some of that was COVID. We got pushed, as you saw in the video this morning. It just kept being Mari emailing me, being like, 6 months. 4 months. How about now? And so now I'm here, and this is my first in-person conference since COVID began, so I'm really thrilled to be here with you all. Oh, you don't have to clap for that. Don't. It's your first conference, too. But that's how long that shelf life lasts. And it's because it's not that Mari and I have been emailing every day since then, and we're just like the absolute best of friends. We're very good friends. I like Mari a lot. But because of the depth of the connection, because we were both being authentic, because we were both being vulnerable, it's easy to say that is my person, and we will do good work together. A good brand should both attract and repel people. And that is the hardest thing to do in a networking situation because you're the brand. And we don't want anyone to be repelled from us. That doesn't feel good when someone's like, oh, absolutely not. But one of the gifts, I've been working in DEIB, Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging, for the past 9 months with a firm based out of Chicago. And one of the things that I've really come to discover about anyone who's got part of a marginalized identity is that you have to be so introspective. You have to be so comfortable with who you are because you know that people will say, you're too much. You're too much blank. You're not enough blank. There's something that makes me not want to connect with you. Sometimes things that you can't control. Now, there's sometimes things that you can control that you don't want to tamp down. I'll do presentations, and there are lots of people who will see me speak and be like, absolutely not. You won't work at this organization. Mari has basically forced me to say fuck at some point today because she was like, he said the F word at one point. And that will really quickly tell some people, that's not for me. And that's actually good because it saves me the time. It saves you the time. Because now I know I'm not going to have 8 sales conversations and then they go, oh yeah, but there's a slide of you in drag. Do you think we could take that out? No. I've lost a lot of gigs because of that slide. And to me, I want to get that out in front of the people I'm collaborating with as quickly as possible. So when you show up, you're going to have that longer shelf life. It's also more sustainable. You don't have to remember, how did I show up for this person? How did I show up for this one? What was the story I told here? When I first started networking, I actually ran a company called Network Under 40, the DC chapter. And when I was working there, I tried to show up and be like, what does this person want from me? What can I give them? And I'm a really good, my background is in theater. I'm good at reading people. I'm good at figuring out what it is they want. I can do that pretty well. But after you've met 8 people, and you're like, oh no, what did I tell her? What did I tell her? What was that story? It's not sustainable for you to do that. So it's going to be longer sustainable if you're just like, I'm this way with everyone that I meet. And finally, real connection is intimidating. That's why we avoid it. We've talked about that a little bit already. Because we're compressing this, I'm just sort of bopping all over around. And we've got that fear of judgment or fear of being embarrassed. One of the things that's so compelling to me, who had an amazing high school life? You're my people. Look at all of you. So, we keep creating high school. Think of walking into a networking event and you come in and everybody's in circles with their backs to you. And you've got this group over here and this group over here and these people over here. We naturally do that. Even though everyone in this room was like, high school wasn't great to me, we're like, but you know what I'm going to do? Build a high school again. Let's do that. And that's because we're afraid of being judged. We're afraid of that embarrassment. High school is generally where we start to form those moments where we're like, I'm going to be myself. And someone goes, no, I don't like that. And that wounding stays with you a really long time. And we will armor up to protect against that wounding for the rest of our lives. I also feel weird every time I walk by the virtual people. I'm like, you get 3 seconds, and then... and now I'm gone, and you're just listening to my voice, and we'll get 3 seconds, a second. And so being vulnerable is that scary thing, but it is the most important thing. When people start talking about, I'm really nervous to network, I don't like to do it, it's usually because you're putting too much pressure on it to be something you're not. If you can take that pressure away and just be like, take me or leave me, and if this is going to work, great. If it's not, the other thing that took me a long time to really latch onto, to be wildly successful in the world, you have to impress 0.0001% of the population. Your minimum viable product, your smallest market size. For you to make whatever it is you want to make money-wise, you don't have to, everyone in this room doesn't have to love me. I hope you do, but you don't have to. If 3 of you were like, I'm gonna hire that guy, successful conference for me. Same for you. Don't think that you have to meet every single person at this conference. To me, when I go to a networking event or a conference, one genuine connection, hi Dawn, is, is worth it. At this point for me, it's been worth it. Hopefully I'll get to meet some of you after this and we'll create some more connections, but legitimately 1 to 3, magic number for me. So don't feel like you have to be like, oh, here's my business card and I've got to get out of here and I've got to go talk to other people. Because again, it's the depth of the connection that's really going to help you. So we can talk a little bit, I will come to the virtual team for this one. We can talk a little bit about the elephant in the room, which is COVID has been happening, which has meant that all of our networking, the thing that I've been speaking on the most has been virtual networking. How do I develop and maintain these connections with people that I don't actually get to read their body language, that I don't get to interact with? How can I be authentic when I'm on a Zoom screen? And it's challenging. It requires more of you. It's being able to be honest with how much capacity you have. For me, I can do a conference all day. I've got about 2 hours on Zoom before I'm done. And so being able to be like, I can only do this much. I'm going to prioritize myself in this way. For my virtual people, how can you extend past the boundary of where you are, of just that call? How can I keep going, whether it's with text messages or emails, or I love a phone call? Because I used to hate phone calls. I was the stereotypical elder millennial in that I was like, text me, and if you call me, I assume someone's dead. But now, because I'm spending so much time looking at a screen, it's really great when someone's like, let's get on the phone, I'll put my headphones in, I'll go for a walk, and I'm going to feel way more connected to them. There's something really intimate about voice only right now. And I think it's up to you to figure out, it's situational when you're networking. When you're in person, we've got some tips for that. But when it's virtual, don't do the same thing. Running a theater company, one of the things we saw a lot of arts organizations do during COVID was, well, we'll just do the show and put a camera in the back, and that's going to be it. And it doesn't feel the same. I sat in on so many staged readings on Zoom that I was like, woof, this is not fun for me. But it's acknowledging and saying, this is different. So how can I be different in this space? Some of the techniques will work, but not all of them. Oh my gosh, this thing is like, let's go. This is showing a little bit of my age because it was the best thing I could come up with. It was, I don't know how many people love LL Cool J, but LL Cool J says, don't call it a comeback. And the thing that I think happens in networking is we get stressed mainly because of the name. It's just relationship building. It does not have to be this big serious thing. It does not have to be a big formal process. It is just you getting to know someone. This is the same thing I say when people say, I'm not good at improv. Well, have you ever had a conversation before? You were doing improv. You didn't have a script. You didn't know what was coming. If people are like, I'm bad at networking, it's like, well, do you have friends? If they say no, it's a different conversation to go into, but for the most part, people are like, well, yeah, and it's like, well, then you've been networking. Introverts, raise your hand if you're an extrovert. This is the easy one. Extroverts, throw it up. Introverts, quietly put your hand to your side. Like, ambiverts, people who are kind of both of it a little bit, like that's how I feel a lot of the times. Everyone's like, oh, you must be a huge extrovert. And it's like, I'm an extrovert until I am not, and then I'm done, and I am out. Mari was like, I was looking for you all morning. It's because I had to leave. Because even in a conference, I was just like, I've had a lot. I've not been here for a long, I've not been doing conferences for a while. I need a little time. I went back to my room, got some work done, and came back and was ready to do it. So introverts, you can be excellent networkers as well. Don't feel the extroverts have the upper hand. They might be good at starting the conversation, but you're good at sustaining the conversation. And when you pull back and you say it doesn't have to be everyone, and it says 1 to 3, you're in a great position to really walk away from this conference with some really excellent connections. So don't sell yourself short, and just remember it's just building relationships. So networking is emotional. That last slide, oh my gosh, we're gonna go all over the place. Networking is emotional because we're getting judged. This is the Baltimore Inner Harbor. I lived in Baltimore virtual people. I lived in Baltimore for a year or so, and it was the first place that I really started intensely networking. And it was when I first became a coach, I was still in my training program, and everyone says, go network, so I did. I went to a lunchtime meeting that had a coach speaker, so I didn't have to explain what I did. It was a really low-hanging fruit kind of thing. A restaurant that I wanted to go to. I remember very specifically, I was going up, I was listening to Heathers the Musical. If you remember that film, it has been turned into a musical, which is actually excellent. And I'm listening to it, I'm jamming to it, I get there, I park, I open the door, and as I open the door, I burst into tears. And not just like a dainty, like, oh no, I'm very nervous. It was like, oh, I can't do, like full sobs. And I called my coach, and I was like, hey, I can't do this, I don't know what's happening. And she was like, well, first off, you don't have to go. So if this is genuinely outside of your capacity right now, don't go. But like we talked through it a little bit, and I closed the door and drove off. And I didn't network for another like 6 months. And we worked on it in my training program, and I worked on it with my coach. I was like, why did that happen? What was it? And it was because I didn't feel good enough. I didn't feel capable enough. I didn't feel like I was impressive enough. And I knew that I was putting myself into a situation where every single person was going to be judging all of those things. And I didn't want to be there because I was so early in my career as a coach that I was like, why would anyone want to connect with me? And so part of networking, that first piece, is overcoming that hurdle of they should be so lucky to connect with you. And I want all of you to walk out with that idea. Even if you are an introvert, even if you're nervous, people should be so lucky to have the opportunity to connect with you. That changes sometimes when you're just like, oh, like, here's my stuff, like, I want to work with you. Like, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about that real relationship. That this is an opportunity for both you and them to meet someone exciting. So really sit with that and own that, like, you're excellent, and we want to hang out with you. And if this person is repelled by your brand, check plus, good brand, keep going. This is actually, it ended up being in Baltimore. The first conference I ever spoke at was from networking that I eventually went back and did in Baltimore. I started speaking with the United Way. I've spoken there every year for the past 6 years. And this is me up on their main stage doing their MC work as well. And all of it came from finally summiting that fear of people are going to judge me. At the end of the day, that's true. You're getting judged all the time. Everyone is judging you, but they actually don't really care that much. Has anyone ever heard the word sonder? Does anyone know that word? It is my favorite word in the English language, sonder, S-O-N-D-E-R. Sonder is that feeling that you get. It happens to me when I'm in larger cities. I just got back from Chicago. I was there for a month. I was staying on the 12th floor of this beautiful building, and I could look out over the nightline of Chicago and see into all of the apartment buildings with all their lights on. Sonder is the feeling that you get when you notice and realize that everyone that you are seeing has as complex and as meaningful a life as you do. Because that's hard to be with all the time. We forget that. I'm in a room right now. I don't know each of you individually, but I do know that each of you have stuff going on right now that is just as challenging and just as exciting as the things in my life. And sonder is a really overwhelming feeling to me, but one of the things that it does is it also connects us, because all of us have that capacity. So when people are judging you, that's fine. You don't need them. If they judge you negatively, you don't have to spend time with them. Just leave. Pull yourself out of that situation. Don't feel like there's so much pressure on getting the cool kid to like you, because that's crap. We keep creating that high school thing again, and there's no need to. It's the worst joke in the deck. Are you ready? Did you hear about the Buddhist vacuum cleaner? It comes with no attachments. It's bad, right? No, it's really bad. But the thing that this is a concept that I was trained in coaching that I really struggled with, and that I think is one of the things that is challenging for people in networking situations, is you're attached to the result. Sometimes, if you're sent out, if you're in a larger company, sometimes your boss will go to the networking thing, don't come back without 20 cards. It's like, that's the worst. Don't ever do that. That is not a marker of success. But you are attached, especially when you're early in your career, because you're like, if I don't get someone to hire me, I actually can't pay my rent. If I don't get someone to buy this thing, to do this thing, to collaborate with me, I might get lost. I might not have the next set of money for me. I might not have any of that. And so you're really attached to the outcome. But have you ever been in a sales conversation with someone that you could tell was just like, please, 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 please buy this? There's nothing more off-putting than someone just being like, and if you don't, like, I can't feed my kids. And you're like, oh no, that's so much pressure for me right now. It's not a powerful place to sell from. It's not a powerful place to connect from when you are attached to, you have to like me. And that's what we do in a networking scenario. So let go of it. And it's the hardest thing in the world to do, because people are like, well, do you want me to have no intention? No, I want you to have intention. That's actually a really great networking tip, is to be able to say, I'm going to go in with the intention of meeting 3 people. I'm going to go in with the intention of getting hired. I'm going to go in with the intention of telling someone about this program that I'm developing. And then once you cross through the door, you let it go and you stay present with those people. And that's the thing that actually pays off. And it's the thing that makes it a lot easier, because when you let go of the attachment, if it goes completely wrong, well, you spent 2 hours at this networking event, you had a nice drink, and then you got out of there, and it doesn't mean anything about you. I actually felt this yesterday. COVID has been changing, I think, how all of us show up and do peopling with everyone right now. I was like, how am I going to be good on, like, how am I going to feel? I just did this workshop virtually a couple days ago, so I was feeling good on the content, but it was like, it's a new thing. And I was going to get dinner yesterday at Jubilee restaurant somewhere nearby, and I drove up, and I didn't go. I ended up in the drive-thru of Taco Bell, because like a 28-minute drive for Taco Bell. No one drives 28 minutes for Taco Bell. But I sure did, because I was so nervous to be with people. And I think that that's something people look at me and they're like, of course you're good at this. No, I'm really bad at it sometimes. And I went to Jubilee, drove up, saw it was super crowded, and was like, never mind, and drove in to Taco Bell. And it was because I was so nervous about people looking at me and being like, oh, that poor guy eating by himself. He's here so, oh. And I was so worried about that I didn't eat at Jubilee. And it looks like, I saw you shake your head. Does that Bloody Mary as good as it look? Oh, they have a Bloody Mary with like a full burger stuck into it. And I was like, I'm going for it. And I denied myself that Bloody Mary burger. But I did buy some of the Bloody Mary beef jerky out there, and it was very good. So if anybody's into it. So all that to say, let go of some of those attachments. Let go of that fear of being perceived negatively, because you have no control over those people. RuPaul says something that's, if they're not paying your bills, pay no mind. If they're not on that list, Brene Brown has a piece where it's like, write all of the people that you care about on a 3x5 index card, and when you make a decision, if they're not on that list, who cares? And I really feel like that in a networking capacity as well. Who cares? If I say as a speaker, if I threw up on stage right now, ran out the door, and you all were like live tweeting about it, you're like, oh my gosh, what a mess, like this was so embarrassing. Tomorrow I'm fine. I'm embarrassed, I'll tell that story at another conference someday. But like, my professional life, still fine. My personal life, still fine. The people that love me, still love me. So even if things go completely wrong in a networking event, it is so not a big deal. And we make it that if there's one thing to take from this, it is take the pressure off of yourself in these events or in any sort of networking situation. Self-promotion is sleazy. We talked about that guy popping up with the cards. Like, I'm never going to work with him. If I could put him on a list of people to never work with, that would have happened. I threw the card away really quickly. But connection is the thing that's going to get you the business. You're going to stay with connection over collaboration. Collaboration will come after the connection has solidified itself, after you all feel good together. That's when you'll get that opportunity. And that's when it'll be easy. Mari and I talked, I didn't have to be like, well, Mari, now we're going to do a 3-hour sales conversation. I'm going to send you this thing, and I'm going to do this. It was like, you good? Cool. And that's been our conversation. And those are the types of conversations that I want to have when people are buying me my services, bringing me on as a coach. I don't want to have to like work really hard to be like, well, let me prove myself to you. Let me do this. There's something to hustle for sure, where you're like, oh, I did these things. Like, here are the things that are going to validate me in the marketplace. Fine. But that connection is really what's going to get that deal signed. How many of you have gotten a job from sending a resume to info@companyname.com? It doesn't work that way. The way that it works is when you go, hey, friend, I'm looking for a job. Here's my resume. Can you put that in front of the right person? Or if you're the right person, can we look at that and have a conversation about it? It doesn't work to just try and get the collaboration to start. You have to really develop and prioritize the connection. And authenticity requires intentionality. This is something that I struggle with sometimes, and that I think people struggle with when it comes to the intentionality side of it. A lot of people think authenticity should be easy. Well, just be yourself. Just show up. It's different from that, though. One of the things that I've really been learning is how to be responsible for your audience without kowtowing to them. And it's a differential. So when I go to speak at, say, like a startup, I can show up in jeans and flip-flops with my toenails painted, with my tail painted. That's it is not painted right now. My toes are, but my tail is completely not painted. I can show up in a certain way, and that's not me being inauthentic, it's me being responsible for my audience. How are they best going to hear this? How are they best going to receive it? When I come to I do a lot of workshops at Dell, I have to have a collared shirt on. I have to be in my bow tie. There's a certain level of expectation. This me is not different from Joanne. It is, but both of them are authentically me. We can contain multitudes. That's the Walt Whitman quote, is I contain multitudes. You all contain multitudes. It's about being able to pull up the authenticity that is appropriate for that moment. So you have to be intentional about how you're going to connect with people. How can I be with this person? And know your line. This is the thing that everyone's looking for that actually doesn't exist, is a definitive, yes, this is what you do, this is how you always do it. We don't actually get that ease. There's a sliding scale all the time, and it's up to you to decide where you feel comfortable and where you think you can push that sliding scale. So be intentional in your authenticity. And so it feels manipulative sometimes, but it actually is not. It is just being responsible for your people, the people that you want to be with and the people that you hope to be with in the future. Traditional networking is awful. This is why so many of us don't like it, because it feels so forced. That's not how you build a relationship, is everybody gets crammed into, right now, a multi-purpose room at a conference. You get crammed in, there's usually a drink, and you say, go and talk to people. That feels awful. This next meme, I don't know how many of you follow meme culture, but this was the Doge meme that for a long time was really crashing. I was like, I'm gonna have to take this out of my slide deck. It's not relevant anymore. And now Dogecoin exists in cryptocurrency, so it's back, and I kept it in here because it's really awkward. It's a lot of that business casual, like, what do you do? And that's the thing, having lived in DC the past 13 years, that is the number one question. And I would challenge you, maybe not to remove it, because we all care about what we do, but to put this down the road a little bit. It shouldn't be, hi, nice to meet you, I'm Strother, what do you do? Because again, that sets up this weird feeling of I'm judging you. And it also, how many of you have an elevator pitch or an elevator speech? Good. It is good in a pitch, it is not good in a connection. How many of you have been given an elevator pitch when they're like, oh, how's it going? And they're like, hi, I help people do the following 5 things, and I'm going to help you do that as well. And I can do that through the following 3 options. I am gone. I'm not listening. I'm like, oh, they're in it. I'm just going to shut down while they do this. And then when they finish, I'm like, do you know where the bathroom is? Like, okay, great. That is my, Dawn and I, or it was someone else. It wasn't Dawn. I keep like, thanks for coming. People are like, how do you get out of conversations in a networking event? And I was, remind me of your name. Natalie and I were talking, we used to both be in the Greek system, and it was what happens, and I learned from our sororities when they were in rush that if someone was like, oh no, I can't be with this person, they'd put their hands behind their back, and that was a signal for their partner to come up and be like, why don't we go talk over here, and help stop the conversation. Networking's the same thing when you get trapped in that conversation with someone and you're like, oh no, this is not a good connection and I've got to get out of here. If you've gone with a partner, that sort of signal is really helpful. If you've not, where's the bathroom? Is legitimately my number one tip, because they're not going to follow you. Because if you say, oh, I'm going to grab some food or I'm going to get a drink, they're like, me too. And you're like, no. The bathroom, however, foolproof. They're not coming. And if they do, weirder case. Like, don't. But I would, at the things that I organized, I would do that. I'd be like, do you know where the restroom is? And I organized the thing. I know where the restroom is, but they're like, oh, I think it's over there. And you're like, thank you. It's been so nice talking to you. I'm going to head to the restroom and like have a great rest of your night. That's how you get out of those conversations. So what do? Push that down in your list of questions. Start with something else, and I'll give a couple more. How am I doing on time? Oh my God, there's 5 minutes. We have 100 slides left, basically. So why do it? Because it actually works. And it's because you're going to be able to find your tribe as we move. Again, I've been talking with a handful of you about the geographic limitations. As we move into this virtual world, your tribe doesn't have to be the same people that you're in a physical space with. I grew up in the weird world of AIM chatting, and I had friends that like lived in different corners of the world, much to my parents' chagrin. But living in rural Kentucky and being a little gay boy, that's how you meet people. So I've been doing this for a long time. But find your tribe and being that authentic self. Opportunities I mentioned often connected to people. It's not info at, it's not sending your resume, it's someone that you are with. And a lot of people hate this. It's not what you know, but who you know. And while I won't say that's entirely true, you obviously have to know your stuff. We all know someone who is in a position right now who shouldn't be in that position because they know someone who is in a higher up position. Let that be you. May that be you, but be qualified too. That's the extra piece there. But we all know that happens. That's something that we naturally do. Take advantage of that natural inclination. We want people that we like to have good things, and when we have access to good things, we're more likely to give it to them. This is something that works really well at a conference. The power of weak ties. Something people think, oh, I have to be best friends with people. I have to really, if I don't do that, if I don't email them once a week, it's going to fall apart. Weak ties are actually really great. This is a pointer, does it get? Kind of. So if you think that this is you here in the middle, the people that you care about really kind of have the same social net as you do. The people outside of that are the ones who have opportunities that you don't have. So I've lived in DC for 13 years. If you want to work on the Hill, I'm probably someone who's better to talk to than someone who doesn't live there. And I am also probably willing to connect you with someone or at least have the conversation when you email me and say, hey, I was at your thing, loved your stuff, can we talk about this? That's a weak positive tie. All you have to do at a networking scenario is create a weak positive tie. You don't have to be best friends with the person. You don't have to make the best impression you've ever made. You just have to make a positive enough one that when I email you later, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm invested in at least having this conversation. So don't feel like you have to go too deep on everything. Really be able to just develop this, I have a pretty good feeling about that person. A lot of you, there are a handful, thank you, as a speaker, people who are nodding and smiling at my things. I'm like, I have a good feeling about you and you and you, and all of these people who are doing that. If you email me and you're like, I was one of your smiley friends, I'd be like, oh, okay, I'll try and help you in some way that if I can. Find your unique value proposition. I do a lot of training in StrengthsFinder, if you're familiar with Gallup StrengthsFinder, and one of the things that I found in the corporate space that does really well is it gives language to what makes you unique, what makes you special, how can you show up in a way that is communicated to other people, and that is your unique value proposition. And that's what you lead with. Just like the X-Men, it's the thing that makes you different, that makes you powerful. And a lot of times, and just like the X-Men, it's usually the same thing that we hide for a long time. I want you to figure out what those things are that make you different from the crew. The thing that makes you pop up as the little prairie dog in the sea of other people, and lead with that. Because if you want to be booked for something, if you want a job, if you want to move forward, you have to stand out. But in standing out, you are also making yourself vulnerable to people being like, I see you and I don't like it. And that's why we don't do it. But when you can lead with your strengths, when it's something that you know, oh, I'm really good at this, I'm going to do that. Or I'm really comfortable with this part of myself, I'm going to put that out there. Then it doesn't feel as bad when someone goes, I don't like that. You're like, great, bye. I don't need this then. So find your unique value proposition, find your strengths, because you want to be sharp as an individual, but well-rounded as a team. This is your individualism, this is your brand, and this is your culture with the circle. And remember that this is the big thing to really hold on to. A good brand will attract and repel. So when someone says, I don't like this, it should be just as much of a win for you as when someone says, I've really connected with you and I would like this. 2, 3, 1. All right. Is he going to talk about networking? Yes, he is. We got our houses in order and we're going to create wins. One of the things, here's how you break in. I want you to leave with this. You all have the deck. So first off, the next couple things are all kind of just tips and tricks. So I would recommend go into the deck, look at these next couple slides, because they just all the stuff that I talked about before is the meat and potatoes. This is the stuff that you can do on your own. The one that I will call out, especially because we're here right now, people are like, how do I break in? I don't know how to do this. People are talking. I feel so nervous. I'm doing that weird little hover next to people where I'm sort of slowly making my way into their conversation. I'm like, I also like that. And you're like, whoa. I didn't see you. Or we do see you, and it's even worse then. The thing that really works, and this sounds so trite, is do you mind if I join you? That's the number one thing, because you're at a networking event. And if they say no, then you didn't want to talk to them in the first place. So mind if I join you is the perfect way to get that. If you see the person, this is, you're the low-hanging fruit when you're at a conference by yourself, because if you see that person who's by themselves somewhere, they will be so grateful for you if you come over and you're like, hey, how's it going? They're like, oh, thank God you did all the work and now I can do it. Find those people who are hanging out by themselves, because, again, if they connect with you, great, they're going to be so grateful. And if they don't, well, they're the weirdo by themselves, so who cares? Self-selection is fine. I always wear, and then noticeable accessories. One of the things, I always wear a wooden bow tie when I come places, and legitimately, it's the first thing that everyone talks about everywhere I go. And the second that comes up, now we're networking. We talk about that was the first thing that we talked about was, oh, I love your bow tie. I've had like 6 people take a picture of it already. And now we're talking, and now we have that easy in. And it didn't have to come up with like, so what do you do? Which is what you want to avoid. So, with no seconds left, what I will say is you can put the questions in the app, and I will just go in and be like, tickety, 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 tick in there if there's something for you. I will also just be around for the next little bit, and I'll be at the cocktail conference. I love that it's like, your talk is 45 minutes, but we've got 90 minutes for the cocktail hour. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. But I will be there. So if you're like, I actually want to pick your brain on something, I'd like some more tips and tricks, I can kind of cycle through these really quickly so you can see them. Having better questions is great. Ending the conversation, see it's in the deck, go in your bathroom. And then we actually made it. So you didn't miss too much in it. But thank you all so much for joining me today. I will be around. Nice to meet you all.